The Shadows of Stirling Bridge. Chapter 1. The Midnight Bridge. Claire Bennett's heart raced as she steered her car down the narrow, winding road that led to Stirling Bridge. The night was exceptionally dark, the moon veiled by thick, brooding clouds that seemed to press down with an almost tangible weight. As she approached the bridge, the car's headlights cut through the mist that clung to the ground, creating eerie, dancing shadows that flitted across the landscape. Stirling Bridge had been closed for decades, its weathered stone arches and cracked pavement bearing witness to a bygone era. Local lore was rich with tales of strange disappearances and ghostly sightings, stories that had kept the curious at bay and the frightened at a distance. But Claire wasn't one to shy away from the mysteries of the dark. She was drawn to them, compelled to seek out the truths hidden in the shadows. As she parked her car at the edge of the bridge, Claire grabbed her recording equipment and flashlight. She took a deep breath, feeling the chill of the mist as it enveloped her. This is Claire Bennett, and you're listening to Darkwood Diaries. Tonight, I stand at the threshold of Stirling Bridge, a place shrouded in mystery and tragedy. Join me as we explore the echoes of the lost, she spoke into her recorder, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Claire began her walk across the bridge, her flashlight beam sweeping over the crumbling stone and twisted metal railings. Every step seemed to echo off the water below, a sound swallowed by the thick fog. She stopped midway, turning off her flashlight to let her eyes adjust to the darkness. That's when she first heard it, a soft whisper carried on the breeze, so faint she thought she might have imagined it. She quickly turned her recorder on, holding it out into the dark. "Is there anyone here with me?" Claire asked, her voice cutting through the silence. She waited, breath held, but only the sound of the moving water below answered back. Determined to gather evidence, Claire set up a small, sensitive microphone on the railing, designed to capture any ambient sounds that her own ears might miss. She left it recording as she continued her exploration, carefully documenting the state of the bridge and describing the eerie atmosphere for her listeners. As she reached the other end of the bridge, Claire noticed something unusual, a small child-sized shoe, half buried in the mud. She knelt down, pulling it free and examining it under her flashlight. It was old, very old. The leather cracked and the color faded to a dull gray. It seemed out of place, a fragment of the past clinging to the present. "This could be a significant find," Claire mused aloud into her recorder. "An artifact from one of the many who've reportedly vanished on this bridge. Could this have belonged to one of the lost?" She placed the shoe in a clear evidence bag, marking it for further investigation. As she stood, the mist seemed to thicken, swirling around her in slow, languid curls. A chill ran down her spine, a sensation that someone, or something, was watching her. Claire hurried back to where she left the microphone, eager to see if it had picked up any sounds. As she approached, she froze. The microphone was gone. In its place on the railing was a small pile of stones, arranged in a deliberate, almost ceremonial manner. Her heart thudded in her chest as she scanned the bridge. "This isn't possible," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the sound of her beating heart. She picked up the stones, examining them. They were smooth, worn by the water, each marked with a faint, unrecognizable symbol. Confusion mingled with fear, Claire decided it was time to review the audio she'd captured so far. She needed to understand what was happening, to piece together the clues that were slowly weaving into a story more complex and chilling than she'd anticipated. As she played back the recordings, her own voice narrated her journey across the bridge. But between the words, she heard it again. That whisper, clearer this time. A plaintive, sorrowful voice that murmured a single word: return. The bridge seemed to grow colder, the air denser. Claire knew she was on the cusp of something profound. The whispers of the bridge were speaking directly to her, and she wouldn't leave until she understood what they were trying to say. With renewed determination, Claire set up her camera on a tripod, pointing it across the bridge. She hit record, letting the video capture whatever might happen as she continued her vigil. The night wore on, the mist swirling endlessly as the hidden voices of Stirling Bridge began to reveal their secrets. Chapter 2. Whispers and Warnings. The chill of the night deepened as Claire continued her vigil on Stirling Bridge. The mist seemed to pulse with a life of its own, ebbing and flowing around her as if it were breathing. Armed with her camera and recorder, Claire felt a mix of trepidation and anticipation. Every shadow and sound seemed magnified in the silence that enveloped her. Reviewing the video footage on her camera's small screen, Claire noticed something peculiar, a fleeting shadow that moved against the direction of the mist. She replayed the clip several times, her eyes narrowing in concentration. The shadow was indistinct, amorphous, but unmistakably there. "What are you?" she whispered into the night, half expecting an answer. Feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon her, Claire decided to delve deeper into the bridge's history through a live narration. Stirling Bridge has been a local enigma for over a century. She spoke into her recorder, her voice cutting through the stillness. Built in the late 1800s, it was the site of numerous disappearances during its first 50 years of use. Locals tell stories of a cursed site where those who linger after midnight are never seen again. With her flashlight casting long shadows, Claire walked the length of the bridge again, stopping at intervals to listen. Each time she asked questions into the air, hoping for an EVP, a ghostly voice captured on her audio. The responses, when she played them back, were chilling, low, murmuring whispers that seemed almost too coherent. "Leave! Save yourself!" One voice hissed, a cold whisper that made Claire's skin crawl. "Why do you linger here?" Claire asked, her voice steady, despite the fear that tugged at her heart. "No escape!" Another voice whispered, fading into a sigh. The atmosphere on the bridge grew oppressively heavy, as if the air itself was thickening. Claire felt a tug at her sleeve, gentle but firm, as though a hand had reached out from the mist. Startled, she spun around, her flashlight sweeping across the empty air. Nothing was there, but the sensation of being touched lingered, unsettling and undeniable. Determined to understand the connection between the bridge and its lost souls, Claire set up an infrared camera, hoping to capture any anomalies that the human eye, or her standard camera, could not see. She positioned the camera to cover the central part of the bridge where most of the activity seemed concentrated. As the camera recorded, Claire sat down near her equipment, her back against the cold stone of the bridge. She reviewed her notes, piecing together the snippets of voices and the history of the site. It was then that she noticed another pattern. Many of the disappearances reported were on nights just like tonight, with a new moon shrouded by mist. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly forming a clearer picture, but many questions remained unanswered. Why did these spirits linger? What kept them bound to this place of loss and despair? Claire pondered these questions, her mind racing with theories when the infrared camera's monitor flickered. Glancing at the screen, Claire saw what looked like heat signatures, several of them, moving across the bridge. They were human-shaped but distorted, as if caught in a continual state of flux. Her breath caught in her throat as she watched the figures move with purpose, converging towards the center of the bridge where she sat. Recording everything, Claire addressed the spirits directly, her voice a mix of command and appeal. "I know you're here. I can see you now. Please tell me why you remain. What keeps you bound to this place?" The air stirred as if in response, and the temperature dropped sharply. A voice, stronger and more distinct than the others, echoed through the mist. "Trapped by the curse. Can't leave. Help us." Claire's heart pounded as she processed the plea. The curse, the legend of the bridge's curse, was more than just local folklore. It was a cry for help from those ensnared by its power. Realizing the gravity of her discovery, she knew she needed more than just recordings and sightings to help these spirits. She needed to uncover the source of the curse and, if possible, find a way to break it. Gathering her courage and her equipment, Claire prepared to delve deeper into the mystery. The whispers had turned into voices, begging for release. She could no longer just be an observer. She had to act. As she stood ready to explore further, the mist parted slightly, revealing the full, daunting length of Stirling Bridge. It was more than a bridge now. It was a link between the past and present, the living and the dead. And Claire was the key to unlocking its secrets. Chapter 3. Breaking the Cursing. As the night deepened into the darkest hours before dawn, Claire felt a renewed sense of purpose on Sterling Bridge. The spirit's pleas echoed in her mind, urging her to unravel the mystery of the curse that held them bound. Armed with her recordings and the chilling interactions she had experienced, she knew that simply leaving was no longer an option. Claire moved to the center of the bridge, where the energy felt strongest. The mist seemed to swirl more intensely here, as if drawn by some unseen force. She set up her equipment again, preparing for a more intense investigation. Her heart was a steady drumbeat of determination and fear, knowing she was about to confront the bridge's darkest secrets. According to local lore, Claire narrated into her recorder, her voice cutting through the silence. The curse of Sterling Bridge began with a tragedy that occurred over a century ago. A family, returning home late from a neighboring town, drove their carriage over the side due to a missed warning about a broken section. No one survived the fall. Since then, many others have disappeared, lost to the mist and the supposed curse. Claire paused, letting her words hang in the air. She then placed a digital voice recorder on the ground and spoke directly to the spirits, her voice clear and compassionate. I know you suffered great tragedy. I am here to acknowledge your pain and help if I can. Please tell me how to release you from this curse. The wind picked up, howling through the bridge's broken railings. The recorder picked up faint whispers, and amidst them, one voice stronger than the others emerged. The marker, broken, restore, warn the living. Confused, Claire replayed the message several times, trying to decipher its meaning. The marker? Could that be something physical on the bridge? She wondered aloud. With her flashlight in hand, she searched the vicinity until she stumbled upon a partially buried stone near the bridge's edge. It was old, moss-covered, and had remnants of what seemed like an inscription. Realizing this stone could be significant, Claire cleared the debris and moss away. It appeared to be an old boundary marker or warning sign that had been neglected and forgotten. The inscription was weathered but still legible. Beware the broken path. It clicked for Claire. The sign was meant to warn travelers of the danger, the very danger that caused the initial tragedy which spurred the curse. Restoring the marker could be symbolic, a way to heed the spirit's plea and perhaps break the cycle of tragedy. With effort, Claire repositioned the stone, setting it upright in a more visible location near the bridge's approach. She then took out a small bottle of salt she always carried, a symbol of protection and cleansing in many cultures, and formed a circle around the newly positioned marker. Let this be a sign to ward off further tragedy, to protect the living and honor the dead, she declared, feeling the weight of the moment. Returning to the center of the bridge, Clary felt the atmosphere shift. The air seemed lighter, and the mist began to dissipate, revealing the first hints of down on the horizon. She turned her recorder on once more, her voice hopeful. If you are still here, please give me a sign that you are at peace. The silence that followed was profound. Then slowly a warmth spread through the air, and the wind carried away the last of the mist. The digital recorder captured one final whisper, softer than all the rest, filled with gratitude. Free. Thank you. As the sun rose, casting the first light over Sterling Bridge, Claire packed up her equipment, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had come seeking ghosts and found souls in need of release. Her podcast would tell their story, a tale of tragedy, compassion, and ultimately, liberation. Driving away from Sterling Bridge, Claire knew her journey at the bridge was over, but her role as a mediator between the seen and unseen worlds was just beginning. Sterling Bridge would no longer be a place of sorrow and loss, but a reminder of the power of understanding and respect for the past. As Claire uploaded her newest episode detailing her profound night on Sterling Bridge, she reflected on the voices that had guided her. The Darkwood Diaries had taken on a deeper meaning, bridging the gap between life and afterlife, and Claire was ready for wherever the whispers would take her next.